guys, well today we're going to be taking a look at our very first partner card for the new GTX 1080. So this here comes courtesy of ASUS and it sits within the STRIX series. So if you're wanting to perhaps sidestep the Founders Edition and opt for a custom cooled overclocked edition of this new NVIDIA card, then this one here could be a worthwhile consideration. STRIX 1080 arrives with the renowned direct CU-free cooling solution, which uses a triple fan arrangement. And built into this cooler we have a series of RGB LEDs which you can modify and align to your own particular theme. Okay, so down to business, how much does this card cost? Well, right now as it stands it is priced as follows. In the UK, £659. Over in the US it's anywhere between $700 and $850. So you know, this card is pretty expensive, but actually it's in a similar region to that of an overclocked edition of the 980 Ti, and the 1080 here is in a different league altogether. And so when you look at it in that particular way, it doesn't seem too bad at all. But anyway guys, we're going to be taking a look at this card in quite a lot of detail today, having a look at all the features and doing some benchmarks at the end, so we hope you do enjoy. Okay, so we're going to start with a quick unboxing on our STRIX card. So here you can see we've got the packaging, and of course this is a STRIX card, so we've got all that branding there for the particular product line. We've got a depiction of the card itself, and then for the GTX 1080, these are some of the new features here. We've got Ansel and VRWorks, and of course DirectX 12 and GameWorks. Now if we just flip this over, we've got some of the main features which our STRIX card comes with. We're actually going to go through all of these things anyway, so I'm not going to run through them now, but to say, you know, there's a specifications down at the bottom there, and then we've got this panel here for the rear I/O telling you which ports you get. And inside we've got another box, and first of all we've got this container here which has your bundled accessories. Now there are only a few things included here, so we'll just run through those. So first of all, we've got the coupon there for World of Warships. You'll have seen that time and again with various ASUS products. That's been running for quite a while. We've got the driver CD that has utilities such as your Aura software. We've got the installation guide that runs you through some of the processes there. Two cable ties, those are fabric. And then we've got this Y cable here which gives you 8-pin to dual 6-pin. And then in the center there you can see that we've got our card, which is in an anti-static bag. Okay, and here is the STRIX 1080, and since our card here comes from the GTX 1080 family, this is a flagship card, and as such it is rather substantial in the size. Now the first thing that is immediately apparent is that we've got this cooler here which uses a triple fan configuration, namely direct CU-free, and we'll take a closer look at the finer details of that cooling solution along with the PCB and the components later on when we remove the heatsink. So externally we have a black plastic shroud which should look quite stylish inside most configurations where you've got a black or a grey motherboard, and since we do have the RGB LEDs on this card, even if you do have something which is red or blue or any other colour for that matter, you can tie it into the card too using the Aura software that ASUS provides. Now this card is large, right next to the reference GTX 980, you can get an idea for the size. And we're just going to do a quick measurement now, just to give you guys a bit of an idea of the actual dimensions and whether it will fit inside your chassis. So for the length, STRIX 1080 is around about 300mm. For the width, you're looking at just over 130mm, and then the height is 40mm. Now our STRIX card has a factory overclock applied to it compared to what you can expect from something like the Founders Edition. So the base clock is sat at 1759 and that boosts up to 1898 MHz, and the memory clock operates at 10 gigabits, and both GPU clocks jump up to 1784 and 1936 in OC mode via GPU Tweak 2. Now this card is designed for ultra high def, and as such it arrives with 8 GB of GDDR5X. STRIX 1080 is also PCI Express 3.0 compliant, is DirectX 12 ready, and supports OpenGL 4.5. Now STRIX 1080 will occupy 2 spaces on your board and case, so just make sure you've got enough room for that. And on the back panel here we've got quite a nice selection of ports. So we've got one dual link DVI-D giving you up to 3K, 2 DisplayPort 1.4s, those can give you up to 8K at 60Hz, and we also have 2 HDMI 2.0s, and those are offer 4K at 60Hz. So DisplayPort 1.4 actually became available only a few months ago, so it's great to see this implemented. Those those ports that are obviously going to be your best option if you need to go higher than 4K. And by having two HDMI ports, we can obviously use a VR headset and a monitor at the same time, which is handy. Now the Founders Edition of the 1080 requires 500 watt for the power supply, and it arrives with a single 8-pin connection, whereas our Strix 1080 requires a 600 watt power supply, an 8 plus 6-pin connection. So a bit extra there for the LEDs, the additional cooling fans, the overclock, and the components. And as we've seen with other ASUS cards, our Strix 1080 also has the LEDs there to tell you whether or not your power cables are properly connected up. Red telling us if the cable isn't incorrectly. The usual SLI ports are on this card to allow you to pair up with multiple cards. However, the benefit with the 1080 is that we can use SLI high bandwidth, which effectively doubles the bandwidth from 1 GB a second, which we had on the 9 series, up to 2 GB a second. Now just flipping Strix 1080 over, on the reverse there we've got this large metal backplate, which not only protects the PCB, but it also arrives with the Aura RGB lighting for the ROG logo. You'll also notice some pockets of ventilation there for those critical components. Right guys, well we've taken the cooler off our Strix 1080 and here is the solution which ASUS are using. So essentially this is the direct CU-free cooler, which uses a trio of wing blade cooling fans. Those fans there are going to stop spinning under light load, and those fans sit on top of this rather large and substantial heatsink which has the direct GPU contact heat pipes. Now having that cooler detached also means that we can take a look at the PCB. So with the Strix 1080, just like other cards from the 9 series, we have the inclusion of Super Alloy Power 2 components with an 8+2 phase design. So the caps, the chokes, the MOSFETs are more efficient, they offer better reliability and less noisy compared to the Founders Edition. And another thing just to note is that our Strix card has 2 fan headers at the very end, and these allow you to connect up any case fans which are in the same area as your card. And what this means is that when your card needs the extra cooling, those fans there will speed up respectively rather than being plugged into the motherboard and just operating off the system temperatures. And another thing just to note is that our card also benefits from Auto Extreme. So the construction is entirely automated, which means that everything is designed with absolute precision. So at the heart of 1080 is of course the NVIDIA GP104. That uses the 16nm process and is based on the new Pascal architecture. So this chip and the 8GB of GDDR5X means that our 1080 is going to favour ultra high definition gaming, so anything above 2 or 3K. And next we're going to do some quick benchmarks with our Strix card to give you guys a bit of an idea of what kind of performance you can expect. So guys, for the games we're going to be testing out Dirt Rally, Rise of the Tomb Raider, that is in DirectX 12, Star Wars Battlefront and Doom. And for each of these games we're going to be sticking with 4K for that resolution, as this is really the intended arena for the 1080. Now in the full review over on Vortez.net, we're going to be taking a look at other games and comparing the Strix card here to the previously reviewed cards that we've had a look at in the past, so head over there for that. And while we check these games out, we're also going to have GPU-Z running in the background to pick up on the peak GPU temperature. So we'll jump out of Doom for that and to have a listen to the cooling fans under load. Okay, so let's begin. And while we're in game, we'll just get the microphone off and close to the cooling fans to give you guys a bit of an idea of how noisy they are. Okay, and if we just come out of Doom, we can have a look at the temperatures. Okay, and there we go. As you can see, the GPU temperature kind of maxed out at the 72 degrees. Right guys, well there you have it. That is a new Strix GTX 1080. So what should be pretty obvious from our video and also the full review over on Vortez.net is that this card is going to offer you better performance than a GTX 980 Ti and the Titan X. And that really is saying something. So at a lower resolution of 1080p, you're going to see between 30 to 40 extra frames with the 1080 against the 980 Ti. And at 4K, it's going to be anywhere between 10 to 30 extra frames, but that is of course dependent on the game, but that gives you a rough idea. So the other things to mention with this card is that it does look stylish, but for the money I would have expected to see a bit of metal instead of the plastic shroud, but as it stands, as I say, it does look pretty neat. And you can tweak the lighting of course accordingly if you are following a particular theme, red, blue, or any other colour for that matter, as it is RGB. And that cooler there on the unit does offer you the exceptional performance, both in terms of the cooling ability and the low noise operation. Now you may have seen a few reports out there which state that the Founders Edition of the 1080 suffers from a few problems. You know, after 30 minutes of usage, it hits 90 degrees. As a result, it throttles back on the clock speeds in order to handle things. And a lot of reviewers have actually not picked up on this. Whether that is intentional or not, I don't know, but you know, we've made steps to deliberately go out of our way, do a 50-minute run of Heaven 4.0. We've monitored the temperatures, the clock speeds, and there are no such concerns with this particular card, the Strix card, which is great news. Now guys, as always, the full review is going to be on the screen. It's going to be in the description very soon over there. All the benchmarks, more analysis, and the overclock that we applied on top of that factory overclock. So that's all from me today guys, a bit earlier than usual. Thanks for taking the time out to watch. Please support by hitting that like button. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do so you don't miss out on any of our future videos. Take care of yourself and I'll see you guys in the next video.